Hi, my name is Rachel Paxton. Today I'm going to show you how to can peach jam. In this class you'll learn how to can peach jam. I'll lead you through the process step by step. I'll give you the recipe and canning supply list that you can download and print out for future reference. You'll find these in your course materials. You'll also gain the confidence you need to try more canning recipes on your own. My name is Rachel Paxton. I'm a freelance writer and mom of 5 children, ages 28 to 6. I've been canning for more than 20 years, and I'm the owner of the website creativehomemaking.com. For this recipe, you're going to need 3 3/4 cups of crushed peaches, 1/4 cup of lemon juice, 5 cups of sugar, and a box of powdered pectin. This will make 3 pints or 6 half pints of jam. You'll also need a boiling water canner, a canning rack if you're using your own Stockpot, an immersion blender, which is optional, a jar lifter, and a wide mouth funnel. This is what a boiling water canner looks like. If you don't already have one, you need to order one. You can get them on Amazon. It comes with the wide mouth funnel and a jar lifter for about $30. There's a link to this in your course materials on your supply list if you need to order one. You can also use a large stock pot to can in, but you will need to have a canning rack like this one. This comes with your boiling water canner, but if you're using a large stock pot, you can buy one of these for about $10 and put it in the bottom of your stock pot. Your pot just needs to be tall enough so that you can have an inch of water above your jars. This is what a jar lifter looks like. Wide mouth funnel. You want to fill your canner about 3/4 away full with water and start getting it boiling. You also need to sterilize your jars, rings, and lids in the dishwasher. If you don't have a dishwasher, you can boil them in water on the stove, but it's easier to do it in the dishwasher if you have one. Now, one thing about peaches is it's a little tricky to peel them sometimes. You want your peaches to be ripe, but not so ripe that they're bruised or too soft. It's hard to get your peaches just the exact amount of ripeness, because if they're not ripe enough, then it's really hard to peel them and it's hard to work with them. So you want them to be ripe and soft. Peaches normally smell really strongly when they are ripe. They don't have very much of a scent when they're not ripe yet. So you should be able to, they should have a good scent coming from them, and they should be soft but not too soft. And how you can really tell if they're ripe or not is an easy way to peel them is to place them in boiling water for 1 minute and then take them out of the boiling water and put them in ice water for 1 minute. And the peels should slip right off. And if your peaches are ripe enough without being too squishy, your peels should come right off of your peaches. So if they don't come right off, you can always resort to using a potato peeler, which I had to a little bit to get all of mine off, but for the most part the peels came right off. You want to measure your peaches. You need 3 3/4 cup of crushed fruit. So you don't want 3 3/4 of peach slices. You actually want it crushed. So you can crush them with a potato masher, and you do that by placing a layer of peaches in the bottom of your measuring cup or a bowl, and then mashing them with the potato masher. Then you can add another layer of fruit and mash it. If you try to mash them all at one time, they don't mash very well. That's why you want to do a layer at a time. And also, you'll find when you're cutting your peaches, if you don't already know, there are 2 different kinds of peaches. There are freestone and clingstone peaches. Clingstone peaches are the kind that when you try to cut them open, the pit clings to the inside of the peach, so it's really hard to get the fruit off of the pit. For freestone peaches, the peach pulls right away from the pit, and those are the kind that you want when you're canning peaches. If you want pretty slices in your jars, you want peaches that will come away from the pit easily. So you want freestone peaches for that. For this recipe, it's not really necessary to have the freestone peaches because you're just going to crush them anyway, and it doesn't really matter what they look like. So if you're having to cut the peach off the pit, that's all right. So this is a good thing to use the clingstone peaches for. Next, you want to get out your pectin and your lemon juice. Place your crushed fruit, your lemon juice, and pectin in a large stock pot. You can also add a pinch of butter to reduce foaming. Now you need to decide how much chunks of peaches you want in your jam. I had a few pieces that weren't super ripe, so they didn't want to crush very well. Some people like chunks of fruit in their jam, and some people don't. If you don't want large chunks, then you may consider using an immersion blender to blend your peaches up. And that is a blender, a handheld blender that you put in your stock pot, and you can blend it right in the pan, and that got rid of most of the chunks, not all of them, but it's pretty smooth now with just a few little chunks, and our family likes it this way. So if you don't have an immersion blender and you want to get one, they're about $20. I use mine all the time when I'm canning, and I do recommend that you get one because it's so much easier to blend things right in your pan when you're cooking. There's a link to this in your supply list in your course materials. But again, this is just optional. You could also put it in the blender and then put it back in your pan. That would be another option. Now you want to heat the mixture to boiling. It cannot be stirred down. That means that when it is boiling, if you stir it, if it stops boiling, that's not quite hot enough. You need to keep heating it until it continues to boil even when you stir it. Next, you want to pour in all the sugar at one time. It's always good to measure all your sugar when you're making jams and jellies because it's easy to lose count when you're pouring cups of sugar in something. You don't want to ruin your jam. So pour all the sugar in at one time, and you want to heat it again to a boiling that cannot be stirred down. And this time you're going to set the timer for 1 minute. Turn the heat off on your stove and remove your pan from the heat. You next want to skim the foam off the top of your jam with a metal spoon. The foam will not hurt anything, but if you leave the foam in there and pour it in your jars, your jam isn't going to look as pretty, and you'll have lots of foam in your jam. Doesn't taste quite as good, so you won't be able to get it all out, but skim off as much as you can with a spoon. If you use the pinch of butter, that will help reduce the amount of foaming that you'll have. Next, ladle your jam into your sterilized jars, leaving a 1/4 inch headspace. The headspace is the amount of space between the top of your jam and the top of a jar. That's important when you're canning because your food will expand when it's being heated in the canner, and if it expands too much and there's not enough room in the jar, your jar can explode. So make sure that you have the correct amount of headspace. Next, wipe the rims of the jars with a damp paper towel or dish towel. And if you don't wipe the tops of your jars off, it can affect whether your jars seal or not. So make sure they're clean. Place your rings and lids on the jars. The lids just need to be finger tight, or the rings rather. Process your jars in the boiling water canner for 10 minutes. There should be 1 inch of water above your jars, and if you live above 1,000 feet in elevation, you'll need to can them for longer than 10 minutes. So check your altitude adjustment chart in the course materials. After the time is up, use a jar lifter or tongs to remove the jars from the canner and set them on the kitchen counter to cool. Usually your jars will seal in the canner, but it can take 10 to 15 minutes for them to seal as they cool. You might hear a pinging noise when they seal. You can tell if they're sealed or not by pushing your finger down the middle of the lid, and if they go down and up again, they are not sealed. But if the lid is flat, then they are sealed. If you have a jar that doesn't seal, you can put the jar in the refrigerator and eat it within a week. And if it is sealed, you can place the jar in a dark, cool area for 1 to 2 years or more. So this is how you make peach jam. I really like how this turned out. It's really pretty and it tastes as good as it looks. So this is how you make peach jam.